Okay, you joining now? Okay, you're in the video now. No, why did I decide to do this? Oh, this is so hard. Hello, my name is Adriana and this is my monthly faves book bracket. So calling this my book bracket is a little misleading because these are my favorite books, but the bracket itself, this beautiful, lovely thing, was created by Ruby from Ruby Red. Go check her out. She does incredible stuff, and this is a beautiful bracket and gave me the idea of figuring out what was truly my favorite book of the year. Because I have an idea in my head, but actually putting books against each other and seeing if that changes my mind, I think could be a little interesting. Last year, I tier ranked all of the books I had read. I'm not going to do that this year because by the time this video is posted, we'll have read probably over 100 books. Just barely over 100, but that's too many books. That's too many books to tier rank. I can't do it. It's not gonna happen. So we're gonna do this monthly faves thing. Obviously starting with the outer brackets with the monthly faves and then put them head to head and see what happens and see what my favorite book of the year was. So before we jump into actually picking the books, please consider liking and commenting on this video and subscribing to my channel if you like bookish things. So even though the months are kind of matched up all across the board, I think I'm just gonna start with January and go chronologically because I keep my reading in a spreadsheet and it just is easier for me that way. So starting in January, I actually only have one book ranked as a 5-star, which is Recursion by Blake Crouch, but I also read some nonfiction that I chose not to rate, and one of those I think could actually compete with Recursion a little bit, and that is Invisible Women, or Invisible Woman, I can't remember. I'll have the cover up here and so you can see. So I think there is going to be a little bit of deliberation here because I loved Recursion. I thought it was so fun. I still think I liked Dark Matter better. I think they're both 5 stars. I think they're both a good time. I think Blake Crouch just writes the same story over and over. He does it well, but I think just because Dark Matter I read first, that's the one that sticks with me the most. And Invisible Woman, this was a nonfiction on how women are categorically excluded from scientific study and data, and it's something I still think about on a daily basis. So I think even though it is unrated in my spreadsheet, and I do love me some Blake Crouch, I think we're gonna do a bit of an upset here and go with the nonfiction Invisible Woman. It just feels right. February, I did not have any books I rated 5 stars, but I did have a couple 4 stars. So I had For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway, The Lincoln Conspiracy, which was a novelized nonfiction about the first conspiracy to assassinate Abraham Lincoln, The Bone Wars, and Clytemnestra. And this, I think if I'm sticking with kind of the theme I did in January of what is stuck with me the most and what I have thought about, probably not every day, but fairly often, I gotta go with For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway. It is just such, I don't know, it's just such a great message of anti-war and hope in a terrible time and anti-fascist, and I really enjoyed this book. It's also a book that I read during my wedding and my honeymoon, so I think there's a little bit of sentimental value in there as well. We honeymooned in Sun Valley, where Ernest Hemingway spent the last part of his life. So it was just a really cool reading experience on top of just a really great story. So yeah, I think I gotta give it to For Whom the Bell Tolls for February. In March, I only had one 5-star, which was Phaedra by Laura Shepperson, so that makes March easy. In May, I had one 5-star and one nonfiction that I didn't rate, but I would like to talk through. So my 5-star was The Shadow of Perseus, and my nonfiction was Unmasking Autism. Between these two books is very difficult because this is probably one of my most favorite Greek mythology retellings that I've ever read, and Greek mythology retellings are my favorite genre of reading. I love Greek mythology retellings in a way that's probably unhealthy. But Unmasking Autism really changed the way I thought about myself and how I interact with the world, and people I know and how they interact with the world, and how both of us, all of us, can do better to help relate to each other and make life easier for each other. But as much as I think Unmasking Autism helped me, I still just gotta go with The Shadow of Perseus because I loved it so much. For the month of May, I had 2 5 stars, which was Atalanta by Jennifer Saint and Starstruck by Serafina El Badri Nance. And this is another Greek mythology retelling. This is a science memoir kind of book that talks about Serafina's struggle with Islamophobia, growing up as a Middle Eastern woman in the early 2000s, her diagnosis with the, what gene is that? The BRCA2 gene that makes you much more susceptible to breast cancer and other types of cancer, and then also her achievement of becoming an astronaut, and kind of how all of those things tied together and how she found her identity between all of these things. And I think already by the way I am just like holding this book on top and talking about it so much more, I think I gotta go with this. Like, this book legitimately made me cry. I do, like I said, I love me some Greek mythology retellings. This was a fun, chill, vibey book. A 5 star in that it was like no thoughts, just vibes, enjoying life. This was all thoughts, and I cried, and I loved it. And yeah. So this is the winner for May. In June, I read a ton of books, but only one of them I rated 5 stars, and then I had one nonfiction I will talk about. But the one I rated 5 stars was Small Miracles by Olivia Atwell, I want to say. I'll have the cover up just in case. And then Braiding Sweetgrass by, I also can't remember the author. Small Miracles was the winner of the SFBO Indie Awards, Science Fiction, I guess SFFBO, Science Fiction Fantasy Blog Off. I can't remember. The Indie Book Award winner for 2022. And then Braiding Sweetgrass is a, I don't really know what to call, I guess kind of like a pop science book written by this ecologist with Native American ancestry, and I guess ethnically Native American, and kind of how she balances her Native American practices with like the larger Western study of ecology, and how those things could actually be very interlinked and can work together rather than against each other. I really enjoyed both of these books, and I think Braiding Sweetgrass is something I still kind of think about and interweave with my daily interactions with the world. But Small Miracles was so cute and so sweet, and I loved it so much. I think I'm gonna go Small Miracles with this one because it's so cute. If you haven't read it yet, you really need to. It's short, it's sweet, it's adorable, it's heartwarming, it restores your faith in humanity, and if you haven't read this book yet, you really need to. Well, both of these, but especially Small Miracles. For the month of July, I had 2 5-star reads, and that was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Tides of Fire by James Rollins. I mean, I can't not pick the James Rollins. Like, this is it. I love this series. I loved this installment. So fun. It's also like really cool and exciting to me as a book nerd that I have this relationship with the PR team at Morrow Publishing, that they always give me a arc of the upcoming Sigma Force release, and it's just cool. There's a lot of feelings tied to this series, and nostalgia, and just good fun times. August was a great month. It was my birthday month. I traveled to China for the first time, and I had 3 5-star reads, which is impeccable. We love that for me. So the first 5-star I had was The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrane. Just a good, sweet, bachelor-esque drama type time. I also read The Doomsday Key by James Rollins. This is the 6th installment of the Sigma Force series, as I am doing my reread of the whole series. And then my last 5-star of the month was Lilith by Nikki Marmory. Between these three, I think I gotta like not put in the Sigma Force because I already have a Sigma Force in. I don't know. And this one was like, it was really fun. I enjoyed it. It was a really great read that month. But between like, I don't think it really stacks up to these two other 5 stars. And between Charm Offensive and Lilith, we just have two such different reads. Like the Charm Offensive, very lighthearted, fun, cute, romance, fluffy. I just swoon whenever I think about it. And Lilith is hard-hitting and makes you think and makes you feel in a way that's really like deep and powerful, and it gave me like the feeling of a Greek mythology retelling while not being Greek mythology, which I think was really cool. And you know, I grew up in the 2010s. I'm not gonna lie, I have a bit of a hipster feeling about me, and I feel like I was really on the leading edge with this book. You don't hear it talked about very often, versus The Charm Offensive I definitely read on hype. It was actually one of my other friends' faves, so I read it for a friends' faves vlog. So like the hipster in me is definitely giving Lilith the edge. So we're gonna go with Lilith. Alright, September was not that great of a month. I did not have any 5 stars, but I did have 2 4 stars, and that was Where You See Yourself and The Roads We Take. And I'm not gonna lie, I had to really think to remember what these 2 books were. I don't think either of them are really in contention for winning it overall, but between these 2. So Where You See Yourself was a kind of YA coming of age story about a young woman with chronic illness of some sort. I can't remember what it was, but her chronic illness had her in a wheelchair, and so it kind of like her coming of age of deciding where to go to college, how much she wants to take accessibility into that account, friendship drama, relationship drama, kind of all the stuff you'd expect out of like a YA contemporary. The Roads We Take was a historical fiction about a young woman in Canada who has a medical degree and is kind of trying to start her own practice, and is at this military camp and decides to leave the military camp after some bad stuff goes down there, and strikes it out west with an Irishman and his family, and things kind of get worse. And then there's like a romance at the like kind of middle to end, and then it just ends with like soap opera drama craziness. So between these 2, I think I will say I did enjoy The Roads We Take more, and I've actually have recommended it to a couple people, even though I had to remind myself what this book even was. So I think I'm gonna go with The Roads We Take. So in October, I had 2 5-star reads. I had The Skeleton Key by James Rollins and The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. These are both kind of like short-ish stories. I guess this is probably more of a novella. So Skeleton Key is a Sigma Force short story focusing on one of my absolute favorite characters in Sigma Force. And then The Sun Also Rises is a Ernest Hemingway story about kind of partying in the 1920s in Spain. 1920s. Yeah. I guess 1920s in like Spain and Paris, and just kind of like all over the place. A bunch of kind of dickheads in their 30s doing their rich kid thing. Between these 2, I think I do have to go with Skeleton Key. Like, even though it is just like a super short little Sigma Force story, it does focus on like my absolute favorite character in the series. This is also a really great book. I really enjoyed it, but I think this would have hit me a little bit harder in like my early 20s when I was still doing my like party, hanging out with my friends, disillusionment with the world phase. And it didn't hit, like, I still really enjoy it. It's a really, really great book, but it doesn't hit as hard when you are nearing your 30s as an established adult. In November, I only had 1 5-star read, and that was Eve, How the Female Body Drove 200 Million Years of Human Evolution. This book is impeccable, So good. I gave a copy of it to my sister for Christmas because I think she really needs to read it. I think everybody should read this. Eve is an incredible nonfiction focused on the biological evolution of humans and how like female bodies have really driven that. I'm repeating the subtitle. I'm babbling, but this book's really good and I think everyone should read it. I felt really empowered after reading it and learned a lot about my body. So it's good. Please read it. And then in December, I have only had one 5-star read, and that is Wayward by Amelia Hart. So the hipster in me really had to bite the bullet on this one because I honestly kind of discovered this. I originally discovered it through the r/fantasy bingo card. A lot of people were recommending it for the druid space on the bingo card for that. But then it won the Goodreads Choice Award for historical fiction, and the people were right on this one. I know a lot of times the Goodreads Choice Awards are kind of a hack, but the people were right on this one. This book is so good. It follows 3 generations of women within the same family, one timeline in 1619, one timeline in 1942 and kind of onward, and then one timeline in 2019. And it's impeccable. The way these women's stories interweave the exploration of generational trauma and female independence and femininity in general, and how women are connected to nature, and it's just very good. And I think you should read it if you enjoy female-focused stories with witchy things in them. That rounds out our bracket for round 1. So hopefully the rest of this goes a little bit faster now that I kind of have everything picked out, although I feel like it's gonna get more difficult as I'm pitting book against book. So I think we'll just start in the lower left corner here with Invisible Women and Starstruck. We have 2 heavy hitter nonfictions going up against each other in this round. Oh. And it's crazy because they're both like women in STEM. I must read a lot of women in STEM stuff. It's also funny because I think these are the only 2 women in STEM books up against each other. Whatever. It's fine. I think we gotta go Starstruck. It made me cry. I learned a little bit about astrophysics, which is an area I'm typically not as interested in, so we're gonna go that. Alright, then we have Skeleton Key versus Phaedra. Ooh, this one is difficult because they're both kind of different. Because one is like short story, adventure thriller, one is like full novel, Greek mythology retelling. I think I gotta go Skeleton Key. Like, it was just such a fun read and I had such a good time with it. And like, Phaedra was also good, but like, it does kind of fade in the memory a bit. Versus Skeleton Key, I can recall, I mean, it's also a short story, but like, it just sticks with me a lot more. Wayward versus Small Miracles? Ugh, no, why did I decide to do this? Oh, this is so hard. Oh man, I don't know if it's recency bias, but I think I gotta go Wayward. As much as I love Small Miracles. Eve versus Lilith? The universe is messing with me. That's actually really funny. Oh boy. Eve versus Lilith. This is really like a biblical standoff. Right here, right now. Oh, this one's so hard. Nonfiction that I physically bought 2 copies of because I wanted one and I felt my sister really needed one, versus Lilith that I did buy a physical copy of after I had an e-arc. I guess these were both e-arcs. Nick Kelly did me some good this year. This one's really hard. I love them both so much. I think I gotta go Eve. Roads We Take versus Shadow of Perseus. This one's easy because like I had mentioned in the first round, I had to remind myself what Roads We Take was, and Shadow of Perseus was so fun. Tides of Fire versus For Whom the Bell Tolls. For Whom the Bell Tolls I actually did rate 4.5, and I did rate Tides of Fire 5. So based on ratings alone, I enjoyed Tides of Fire more. For Whom the Bell Tolls is definitely objectively a better book, but this is my personal favorite book bracket of 2023. So we're gonna go with Tides of Fire. Round 3. This is gonna be even harder. So first up we have Skeleton Key versus Starstruck. I think Starstruck wins this out fairly handily. Like I said, Skeleton Key, it's a short story, it's fun, but like it's not really like, it's not doing anything impeccable, really. Wayward versus Eve, on the other hand. Why did I do this to myself? I think I am gonna go Wayward. I enjoyed that book so much. As much as I like love Eve and I will continue to reference back to it, Wayward, there's just something special about it that's just like really cool and important feeling. Shadow of Perseus and Tides of Fire. Again, Tides of Fire being, you know, action thriller, James Rowland's Sigma Force Good Times, versus Shadow of Perseus that I really got to delve into, think about critically, kind of flex my Greek mythology knowledge a little bit. I think I gotta go Shadow of Perseus. And in this final 3, I'm not gonna lie, I pretty much knew Shadow of Perseus was gonna be in there. I had a very sneaking suspicion that Wayward was gonna be in there. Starstruck is kind of like, it's kind of surprising me a little bit, but I think it was also in an easier side of the bracket. So I think we are going to discount Starstruck. Again, I still freaking love it, and this is an incredible top 3. I think this top 3 really does like define my interests as a reader. We have a women in STEM nonfiction. We have a light fantasy, women-focused generational trauma kind of literary book, and then also a Greek mythology retelling. So I think honestly these 3 books really does a lot to define my interests as a reader. And if you need to know anything about me and my channel, I guess maybe if you throw like Tides of Fire in there too as like a top 4, that's it. That's my channel. But between the 3, and really between the 2, between Wayward and Shadow of Perseus, this one's like really hard, and I need you guys to know this is coming, like this is a super duper close tie, and I do feel like I need to pick one for the sake of this video and what a bracket is. But just know that like this is not a blowout. This is a game that is ending like, I don't know if we want to go like basketball analogy or football analogy here. These 2 books are like a point apart. They are so close. This is coming down to like overtime. This is a buzzer beater. This is... Even with that all said, I think the one that is eking out at the very end is the Shadow of Perseus. And like, I am and also am not surprised that this is winning. When I read this back in, I think that was April, I did think it was going to end up being my favorite of the year. Wayward kind of came out of nowhere right at the end in December and like really surprised me how much I loved it. And it did like make me think a lot. But I think just like the experience of reading Shadow of Perseus, finishing it and grabbing out all my Greek mythology references, doing a bunch of research with it, just really scratched an itch in my nerd brain that I think edges out even as cool of a story of 3 interweaving generations of the same family. It's close, but I feel good about this. And looking at this bracket, I feel good about this bracket. That was an emotionally straining exercise, but I can safely say my favorite book of 2023 was The Shadow of Perseus. Please let me know what would have made your top 3 in a bracket, and definitely go check out Ruby's channel for creating this incredible bracket. I imagine, I don't know if she'll do a video with it. I don't really know what her plan is with this bracket. But I think it's so cute and pretty, and I'm obsessed with it. So I am so glad she let me use it for this video, and thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you on the next video.